All right, 5 seconds. Wait till I see maybe a viewer or not.
Yeah.
Or we could just get into it. Either one. All right, yeah, whatever. They come on, they get on while we talking, and if not, well, what's up, y'all? It's the first episode of Unfiltered. I'm here live with Rhoda Trainer. You may know him, you may not, but if you don't, that's what we're here for, and you will by the end of today. Before we get started, before I ask him who he is and let him tell you, I have a 2 minute video that he did himself, and you can watch it right here.
Here we go. Let's meet in the middle. Alright, so for you guys that don't know, my name is Rohan Johnson. I'm a skills trainer, skills coach in Kingston, New York, which is probably like 30 minutes south from here. I was born in Parkway, Queens, but I moved to Kingston when I was like 10 years old. I come from a very rough background. I moved probably 7 times between the ages of 2 and 10 before I finally settled down with my parents. My dad wasn't really in my life. First time ever I met my dad, hung out with my dad, I was 18 years old. I'm 23 right now, so a couple of years ago, probably 5 years ago. First time I ever hung out with my dad, and me and him have a great relationship right now. But besides that, I grew up very rough. There's a lot of times, especially you guys are 12, 13-year-old, right? Around that age. Who's 12 in here? Who's 13? Right? You guys.
Well, all right. Well, that's the video. All right. Well, now we here with you live, man. What if somebody had to ask you, they had just 5 seconds to ask you who you are, what would you tell them? Like, what's important to you? Who are you? Who is Rhoda Trainer?
Dang, 5 seconds. I would say I'm a humble dude that likes helping people through basketball. That's the simplest way to put it.
Yeah, what do you remember the time when you said, I want to be a trainer, I want to be a coach? Did you play ball when you was young? Like, what made you get into the basketball field?
Yeah, so I started playing basketball when I was 10, and I kind of just automatically fell in love with the sport. I played football pretty much all my life,
Yeah.
and then not all my life, up until 7, and then I moved to Kingston, and I didn't play any sports for a while. Then I was 10, and I picked up basketball, and I fell in love with it immediately. And then from there, I just kept on playing. I got a couple of looks, D3 looks and stuff like that. And then my senior year, I got an enlarged heart. And I realized that was probably the end of my playing career. I wasn't going to go on and play college basketball. So I still wanted to be a part of the game. So I went to SUNY Del High, and I got on as a student assistant coach. And then I realized I really didn't want to do coaching because you're dealing with 12 players and different personalities all at once.
Right. Right.
And I really enjoyed having personal relationships. So I got into that's when I was at SUNY Del High my freshman year. I started Lionheart basketball, and I started training when I was there.
Right. And we spoke about it a little bit before, we got on live. But what is Lionheart? Like, why did you create that? Like, where did you get that from?
So I always liked lions growing up. I'm a Leo,
Right.
so I guess lions are
Right. It's
my
only right.
favorite animal. Yeah.
It's only
And
right.
so I always like lions. I like the idea of lions. I like the being hungry and you gotta hunt for your
Right.
food or you don't eat. I like that mentality.
King of the
And then
pride.
heart is yep. And then the heart is just the love for the game. So
Right.
you gotta love the game in order to be successful in it. So we just put lion heart together and then basketball at the end.
Where you looking to take Lionheart? Like, what's your end goal with it? If there is an
So
end goal.
I don't know if there's an end goal. I want to inspire as many people as I can through this program. I want to help people through basketball, whether they're really basketball players or not. I want to put academies all over the country. I want to eventually have a clientele that's really successful in the game of basketball, or not even in the game of basketball. Just really, I want to help build successful individuals.
Do you remember who was the first person that you trained? Like, the first person when you was like, look, man, I wrote down a little workout. Let's go to the park and try it out.
So the first person I ever trained was at SUNY Del High. His name was Chiamaka Brown, and he gave me my first workout, and just wrote down a little workout. It was kind of easier because I was on staff there. I had access to their film,
Yeah.
so I just watched his film, and I just put him in situations that he was going to be in, and we saw kind of immediate success right away. So I was like, I'm kind of good at this. I might as well keep on going. So I continued to work with a couple of players on the team, and then when I came home visiting and stuff, I worked with a couple of players at home, and I just continued to do it, and we kept on seeing success.
So when was it that you started to train people closer, upstate New York? Like I seen you train Dio Johnson, Brian Moore, different kids from like the high classes of basketball. Like when was it that you started to do that?
I think I was probably like 2 or 3 years in. I started training Brian, I believe. I started training Brian first.
Right.
He came from the city, and he kind of had like that city mentality that I had, like kind of no one could tell you anything, and you're always the best player on the court and stuff
Right.
like that. So we
Right.
kind of butt heads a lot in the beginning, but once we knew we were just trying to help each other, we became really close, and he's someone that's like a brother to me today.
Right, and I mean, you talk about being from the city. You said, and ironically, you're from Far Rockaway. I lived in Far Rockaway for a few number of years in my life. 8th grade, I went to MS 53. You familiar with that area over there?
Yeah, yeah.
MS 53. Yeah, I went over there, so I know what you mean when you say rough. You went through rough times, and how have that? I know how it shaped me. How did it shape you? How did it build who you are? How did it create Road to Trainer? Like how did those? Because a lot of people can't go through things like that.
I think the most important thing it did for me was it built like real life confidence. Like I always tell people that there's a lot of people that walk around and claim that they are a confident individual, but like I tell people like for real, I've had guns pointed at me 7 times in my life. You know what I mean? I'm only 24, so there's nothing you can do to like really scare me. You know what I mean? Like if I think I want something in the business world, I'm gonna go get it. I'm gonna go ask for it. Like the worst thing someone could do to me is punch me in my face. You know what I mean? I'm not really afraid of anything. So I think that's what it did for me growing up that way.
Right. So now let's you play Dio Johnson, Brian Moore. Especially Dio. He's played in NYC, so it's kind of like you built. Like as a trainer, like you built to play and train these kids that's used to like that grit. Like I mean, there's no basketball like New York City. Dio Johnson played on those streets. Brian Moore, I'm sure, has played in his fair share of tournaments where he had to go hard as well. And watching him play, he do have that aggressive part of his life. Like I want you. It's this food right here. We're gonna eat what you kill. Like how do you go about installing that in the people that you do train? Because a lot of people, I mean, and not for nothing, like a lot of people, it's different on these sides of the waters because we go to basketball games here, shout out to Josh Gallen, shout out to Brian Moore, shout out to Shaquan Roy, people like that, like where they they want you, like they they want the competition, they want it, but a lot of people not really like that. So I'm sure you don't coach everybody with that type of mentality. So how do you try to get that into them?
So the first thing we try to do is just make them successful in workouts. So we just put them in situations that they're going to be in their game. Like if you ever come to one of our workouts, there's not a lot of dribbling, not a lot of cones on the floor. I don't think I've used a tennis ball ever. Sometimes we do 2-ball stuff. Like we just put you in situations that you're going to be in. So once you're in the game, you've seen the situation a million times before in practice. So these shots become second nature. So that's how we try to install confidence. As far as like having that kind of mentality, I think you kind of got to be born with it and have that kind of swagger. Because there's kids that are confident but they're quiet. Right. Like Shaquan is, I think, someone that he'll kill you and he'll put up like a really crazy stat line, but he'll be quiet about it. He won't do a lot of chirping and stuff.
Right.
Like
that would be the most dangerous cons too. Those would be the most dangerous cons. So how did your relationship with Dio Johnson like come about? Like was it just like, hey, you good at basketball, I'm a good trainer, let's get together? Because y'all had a lot of runs. I see it on your Instagram, a lot of basketball runs. You put like Dio Johnson, Brian Moore up against each other, probably the two best guys you train maybe in your time, and like you get good results. People come out, they play basketball and they play hard. Like so, how did that relationship with Dio come about?
I kind of knew him when I was younger, just growing up in the city. He was always had a little buzz to him, being a young kid and putting up like 40 points in like the rec leagues here. So that I kind of always knew about him, and then he was kind of blowing up in City Rocks and stuff like that. So when I came home, he just gave me the opportunity to train him, and we kind of built a relationship from there.
Yeah. And then, and you also had that the clip with Slam where you talked about him. Put it up right here, right now.
He's head and shoulders above kids his age and a lot of kids that are older. He's a competitor and he has the mindset of someone that's going to go out there and kill you every time. It doesn't matter who steps in front of him.
How did that, working with Slam, like what was that like? A lot of basketball guys from this area, a lot of basketball guys from everywhere, they want to work with Slam, they want to work with Overtime, they want to work with ESPN, House of Highlights, and you've made your way on all four, no matter if it was 3 seconds or 2 minutes. That's 4 for 4. That's big. How was it working with those guys?
I think it was a dope experience. Like you said, when you're younger, you pick up Slam magazines and you're always watching ESPN and you're just hoping to like be on the show, like you said, even for 3 seconds. So it was dope to see my face on a Slam feature for sure.
Right. Shortly after that, you went out to Cali and you helped pre-draft with WNBA player, trainer, and NBA trainer Alex Basil. You can follow him on Instagram right here. See what he's about. You helped train Kevin Porter Jr. You're surrounded by a lot of big people, a lot of big players in the game. I'm sure that, you probably had your mind dizzy hearing what they had to say. And, the things, you probably learned a lot. Thought you knew a lot about the game and went there and learned, a million more. Like, how did that shape you coming home? What did you take from there and bring here with you?
Definitely. Alex is someone that is super humble dude also. Like, you wouldn't know he's an NBA trainer if you just saw him. Like, he doesn't wear a lot of jewelry. He just wears, he's just a regular guy. He's a regular dude. So he's super humble and super approachable. Actually, I just got off the phone with him today. Like, we talk regularly. Like, he's still someone I keep in contact with, but he's super detailed. So he locked in on a lot of things that I wasn't paying attention to when I was just starting out training. So like the way you move your foot or the way you come off the screen, the way you set a screen, the little really micro details.
Small things.
Yeah, he focused on.
Yeah. So I mean, like, is that something that you're interested in also? Maybe WNBA, NBA training, college level.
I definitely want to get to that level. I think the way I'm trying to go about it is I'm trying to make the players that I have now into an NBA player, into a great level. So that's crazy because that's part of the reason that we on this interview, and that's why I felt like it was a good idea to bring you on, because part of what I'm doing, I'm trying to create an environment where kids, they play with that grittiness and they want to go to college and they want to be the best guy on the court, and you've trained those guys that have done that. So would you say it's been easy or hard in this area to find people to work with that's serious and that that you can take to that level? Because for me, like, that's a part of what it is. Like, I feel like in this area you have kids, they want to go to that level, they want to be in the NBA, they want to play D1, but they don't want to go to the gym every day, and they don't want to wake up and come work out with Road Trainer. They don't want to go here and there, I think it's I've been spoiled a little bit. So I started out with Brian and Dior. You know what I mean? I started out with 2 good players, so I've been spoiled, and I thought that everyone had that mindset.
Absolutely.
But going through, starting to notice that everyone isn't like that. Everyone doesn't have that mindset. So I've been doing a lot of research on mindset and how to make these players better. So there's 2 ways that we go about it. We either like shock them and like,
Absolutely.
hey, meet me at the gym at 6 a.m. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Either be there at 6 or we're not training anymore.
Absolutely.
And then there's sometimes we go through it gradually where we keep on pushing them, and we see results both ways. It really depends on the player. So
Absolutely. I was interested in the Journey tour. Like, what was that about? What was that for you? Like, what? That was the 2-minute clip. For anybody who's wondering, the Journey tour was the 2-minute clip that we played in the beginning. That was just one part of what you shot. But what was that for you?
So that was just me going around to different schools around the area and just talking and telling my story. And I went to a couple of practices also and just telling kids like how my story and how I made it out of my situation and how I could help them out with my story or anything they needed, pretty much. That's what that was.
Yeah. And like you, and I mean, a lot of the kids, like, obviously, where you reside now, like, where do you almost?
I live in Kingston still.
Kingston. So is it like any kind of similarities between Kingston and Far Rockaway or anything like that? Like the kids there.
The crime rate has been up recently, honestly, because of COVID. A lot of other things are happening. People are getting bored and stuff like that.
Okay.
It's definitely not as rough, I would say, but it's still obviously neighborhoods that are rough growing up.
And what's your way? What's the lion heart way of fighting back? Like, trying to get those kids, here, because in a lot of ways, that crime rate rising, that crime rate being high, that affects the guys that you training, that affects the guys that the environment that you're trying to create, badly, because these guys, these kids that may be in school playing ball, shooting hoops, or may be at practice with you, now they can't do that. Gyms are closed, or
Yeah,
whatever the case may be.
that's the worst part about
You
not
know?
having a gym right now is that like even last year, like I had kids in the gym until like 12 a.m.
Yeah.
and older people used to always complain like, why is this dude in the gym till 12 a.m.? What could he possibly be doing? I'm like, listen, if I'm not, even if we're in there not doing anything, I know where these kids are. You know what I mean?
Right.
I know they're not on the streets,
Right.
so it doesn't matter how long I got to stay here with them, as
Right.
long as they're here with me, because I know I'm not going to put myself in a situation to be in trouble. So I know they're not going to be in a situation to be in trouble. So that was a really the saddening part about the gyms closing down is not being able to know where all our kids are. And the best way I can say to get out of these situations, whether it's through sports or not, is just you got to dream beyond your environment. So that's what I always did. Luckily, I played a sport that took me out of the city most of the
Right.
time, and I could see other places. Like I went to Connecticut, we went to Pennsylvania, we went to Boston. Like I got to see different things around the city, and most of the time we were playing in like nice arenas and colleges and stuff like that. And that's something that I wanted because I dreamt outside of my environment.
Right. And talking about dreaming outside of your environment, how do you a lot of kids here, when they playing basketball, they playing football, they have that mentality of, I'm from upstate, I'm from Kingston, I'm from Poughkeepsie, I'm from here. I may not be able to get that look that a guy from New York City may have playing in West 4th and Washington Heights and Dykeman and bus things like that. Like, do you get that a lot with the guys that you train, or the guys that you train? It's more like, I could play with anybody, so I don't really care where you from. I don't care who you got,
Yeah,
honestly.
I definitely get a lot of that up here. I think the problem is, I always say, if you have the grades, most importantly, and the talent,
Great.
you'll be good. Someone will find you. You know what I mean? And
Great.
people don't understand that playing at the Division III level, the JUCO level, and the NAIA level, the Division II level, it doesn't matter where you play. My main focus is getting these kids
Right.
free education. You know what I
Right.
mean?
And definitely talking about grades, like, because that's something that a lot of people, may feel like they could skip over. So you being a first-hand trainer, trying to help guys cross from that one level to another, like, how important are grades? How important is school? I mean, even for guys that feel like it may not be, how important is it?
It's super important. Like I've kicked players out of the gym that haven't had the grades that I think they can have. So like if our deal is you need to have an 85 in order to come here and hang out with us, you don't
That's
have
big.
an 85, you're not allowed to come in the gym.
That's big.
You can ask any of our players. That's what we do for
That's
real.
big. I can tell you, that's big. Especially for a high school player at 85, you got to definitely sit in the classroom for that one. So and you talk about, and those are the kind of things that change, because even the high school standards, like they could say like, yo, Coach Rowe, like 85 for you, but 65 in school. Like, you know what I'm saying? That don't, I don't only need a 65 to pass, well, I need an 85. But, like those Division 3, Division 2, Division 1 set standards.
It just opens up a lot more opportunities for you. Like you don't want to limit yourself to just like, no offense to community college, because that's where I went. You don't want to limit yourself just to community colleges. You want to be able to have an opportunity to go wherever you want because you have the grades. You don't want to be denied because you don't have the grades to get into somewhere. And I think education in the school is really important. I think educating yourself is really important. So I wasn't the greatest student, but if we can push someone to create these habits younger, by the time you get to college, it's going to be a lot easier instead of trying to build up those habits.
And you probably, I just came on the screen by accident. I wanted to go back a couple months. You had like someone you trained that Brian played with. I wanted to hold on until Brian got on, but he hasn't responded yet. But y'all lost a very important player. He seemed like he was somebody dedicated, somebody who played, all the time. How tell me about the impact that had on you. Cause we talk about the crime rate, we talk about guys who could be distracted and things like that, but it wasn't even like that for this. Like how did that, taking effect on you, and how does that take
So
effect on you moving forward?
So Chris was like the standard of like someone that used basketball and didn't let basketball use them. Like he ended up going to Utica and he was going to be there for 5 years with a free education, which is unheard of someone going to a Division III college and playing a sport and being there for 5 years
Yeah,
and going to be able to fast track his bachelor's degree and be able to graduate no debt. Like that's unheard of going to a college like that. So, and he had extra money from scholarships because of his grades. Like he was someone that was an honor roll student every semester. And when he got there, I think he left his freshman year with a 3.9. So he was an
three
epitome
nine.
of a role model for our community. So
Wow,
losing him was like, it was definitely tough and
big.
like, it was sad. And I still, his jersey's actually on my wall over there. And like, there's times I just sit in my car and if I'm going to the gym, I really think like, man, Chris would be here or something like that. So it definitely took a toll on me. And
Yeah,
it's just like his family a lot.
yeah. So I mean, that's definitely a guy that God should definitely look up to. Like, and walk in his shoes. Do you tell your players that, like, the people like know, like, Chris was that guy in
Yeah,
school?
yeah. Chris was well known around this community, and it was known that he was a good student. Like was well known, and if it isn't, I'm gonna make sure that
Right,
people know.
right. That everybody, yeah. And do you only train guys? Not that you would say, like, no guys that's not class A, but do you only train class AA, class A? Have you ever trained anybody who plays like the smaller schools? Cause you
Yeah,
live farther up, so
yeah.
it's kind of out of the way.
So I actually travel. I travel between like New York City and Utica. So I train pretty much any player that's willing to come in and put the work in. Doesn't matter what level you start at. That's really my job to get you to the next level.
Right, right, right. And closing out, how we could talk about you as a trainer. How if I'm someone and I'm in desperate need to get my skills right, getting better. How can I get in contact with you? How can I book you? How can I get ready for my sessions with you and things like that?
I think the best way to contact me is through Instagram. So that's just at Road the Trainer. Um, you just message me on there. Right now, we're out of the gym, unfortunately, but once we get our gym back, we'll be able to set up workouts and have workouts like and stuff like that.
Right. And how do you prepare for a training session? Like, do you athlete by athlete? Like, if I was getting ready to prepare, like, how would you go about training me in a way?
So it's definitely different between each season. The off season, we focus in on about two or three skills that we really want you to get better at, and then in season we just focus on one. So let's just say it's the summer, you hit me up and you say, "Hey, I want to get ready for my season coming up." I would say, "All right, what are three things that you're good at and three things you're bad at?" And if I could, I'll reach out to your coach, have access to your film. I'll watch all your games. I'll break it down, and then we'll come up with a plan together on how to make you successful during the season.
Right. Ro, I tried to get Brian on. Brian, he gave out on us, but I
That's
appreciate you. I
no
appreciate you
problem.
for coming on. Hopefully in the future we get a lot more viewers and things like that. You can come on again and
Sure.
share your story. I appreciate you. Thank you.
No problem. Yep. Nice talking to you.
You too.